get those civilians out, Palestinians, potentially hundreds of Americans believed to be included in that group. The White House says that they've been working with partners in the region who have contact with Hamas to try to ensure that there can be some type of way for these civilians to get out. They've been saying that they're trying to do this for several weeks now, and that safe pathway has not come to fruition just yet. But these are all issues that the White House is keenly focused on as they are still waiting to see what the next steps in this Israeli operation will be. Victor and Amra.
Arlette Signs for us there at the White House. Thank you so much. Let's bring in now CNN Global Affairs analyst Kimberly Dozier and CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton. Welcome to you both. Colonel, let me start with you. So 300,000 Israeli troops have been on standby for weeks now, and we've got confirmation from the IDF that some of their troops are in Gaza right now. What do you expect as this ground incursion or the ground operations expand, as the IDF says? What will that look like?
Yeah, good morning, Victor. So I think what we'll see is a more movement of Israeli troops into the area, especially of northern Gaza. So it appears as if the first movements have been around Gaza City toward that area, and it looks like what they're trying to do is perhaps move in and possibly encircle as much of the Hamas fighting groups that they can find, many of the fighting groups that they can find. There are also going to be activities in the south, but I don't think that will be the main axis of attack. The main axis of attack will come either from the north or the northeast into the northern and north central parts of the Gaza Strip. And as far as the number of troops, I think we'll see that increase. And the telltale sign will be how many of them spend more than 24 hours in the Gaza Strip. If they do that, then we're seeing a movement to take and hold territory. And that's a key indicator that this next phase of the operation is clearly underway.
All right, that's important to watch, how long and how many of them stay beyond 24 hours. Kim, let me ask you about this IDF report that they hit with their warplanes 150 tunnels overnight. We know from at least some of the 4 hostages who've been released by Hamas that they were held in tunnels. So that seems to be an extraordinary risk to target the tunnels that's where these 229 hostages could be.
It seems that Israel must have pretty good intelligence about where the large holes are that hostages who've been released say they were being held. Either that or they're hitting what they think are conduits for fighters. But yes, they are taking a risk. There has been pressure inside Israel building to go ahead with a ground invasion despite the ongoing negotiations that the U.S. has been holding with Qatar, talking to Hamas to get some of the hostages out. On Friday, we thought we were on the eve of a major release of a large number of them, but then those negotiations seemed to fall apart midday, possibly because they'd been reported. That had happened before. And the IDF seems to have decided that's it. We're not going to let Hamas use these delaying tactics, as they were being called, by releasing hostages one by one, and we're going to see who we can get out. But they did have enough time to interview those 4 hostages and try to come up with some intelligence as to where they thought they were being held.
Colonel, there's a senior Hamas official who told the Associated Press exclusively that they need some help from Hezbollah. They are appreciative of what they've done thus far. However, they need more assistance. Now, it's been peculiar over these last couple of weeks, the engagement from Hezbollah, but not intervention, I would say. What do you make of the request, the public request from Hamas for Hezbollah to join this fight in the greater way?
Yeah, Victor, I think Hamas is in trouble. I think they realize that they might be, they're definitely on the back foot, and they might lose this campaign against Israel, which is not to be, it's not an unexpected result. But the fact that they are so publicly reaching out to Hezbollah is not only interesting, but it also shows the lack of connection between those groups. We know that there's a connection between them, but it's not a robust alliance, not let's say a NATO-like alliance where an attack on one is an attack against all. They have their own interests. They are going to move forward in a way that is independent of Hamas as well as, and that also shows that Hamas is a very potent force in Gaza, but it is not the end-all and be-all of all these groups that are arrayed against Israel.
Kimberly, the U.S. Joined Israel and several other countries in voting against the UN resolution calling for a ceasefire. 120 countries voted for it, 14 against, 45 abstained. And ceasefires typically have an expiration date, 48, 72 hours or so. So the U.S. is against the ceasefire, but in favor of a humanitarian pause. Is this just rhetoric? Is there a diplomatic difference here?
And the concern on the Israeli side was that a ceasefire could stretch on for days and days and days, and they were more comfortable with this term humanitarian pause, which meant perhaps a few hours. I'm not sure why this became such a huge arguing point, except that within the UN, ceasefire has a different meaning. The discouraging part also for Israel was that while that one measure passed, calling for a ceasefire, Canada tried to add a measure of condemning the Hamas side of the attack, and that did not pass. So from Israel's perspective, it's as if the world is ganging up on them for the response, but forgetting, developing amnesia when it comes to the fact that 1,500 Israelis were killed, tortured horribly in a single day on October 7th.
Kimberly Dozier, Colonel Cedric Layton, thank you.
Still to come, the United Nations overwhelmingly approves a resolution, as Victor was referring to, calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, but will either side even consider agreeing to it?
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines. The day's biggest stories. The night's most.
Kudos to Canada for adding the bit about blaming Hamas, which unfortunately didn't pass. Kudos to Canada for adding the bit in the UN to that bill about blaming Hamas for its horrific massacre that day in Israel. But unfortunately, it didn't pass. Why not? Unfortunately, it did not pass. Well, one more reason for Israel not to accept it. Yes, one more reason for Israel not to accept it, for it developed amnesia about what Hamas did to Israel, to Israeli citizens, torture, massacre. Suddenly all the other countries developed amnesia about that, which was the main reason for Israel to want to go in and take out Hamas. Finish them, boys. Take out Hamas. Finish them, boys. Take out Hamas. Finish them, boys. Which they have a right to do, to defend Israel's integrity and sovereignty. Yaman. Kudos to Canada. Kudos to Canada. Kudos to Canada. It's like a ganging up on Israel and deleting any and all scientific fact.